Hello, my name is Chris Santiago. For this presentation, I'll be speaking to you about federal law enforcement's role in combating terrorism. In recent history, terrorism has almost become a societal norm. It seems that every day you hear of a new terrorist attack somewhere. In the past, this would have been something very rare and crazy. However, in this day and age, while incidents are no less tragic, they're happening with alarming frequency. This brings me to the thesis statement for my presentation. I believe that federal law enforcement needs to work harder with local law enforcement and communities to communicate, collaborate, and share information in order to prevent future terrorist attacks in the United States of America. This presentation and topic are in line with my career interest as I am currently endeavoring to further my education in the criminal justice field. Along with that, I currently work in the same area of federal law enforcement. To get started, you will need to know some background information about federal law enforcement. Throughout this brief, you may hear the term federal agent or special agent. For the purposes of my presentation, they are interchangeable. Everyone in federal law enforcement needs an extensive amount of training. Federal agents are no different. As we discuss these topics, I will use the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, also known as ATF, as an example. According to ATF's official website, all their agents initially receive training at the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center, also referred to as FLETC. FLETC is located in Glencoe, Georgia, and the academy falls under the Department of Homeland Security. For almost all federal agencies that attend, the training consists of two phases. The first phase is called the Criminal Investigator Training Program, or CITP. All special agents, with a couple of exceptions, are required to take this course regardless of agency. CITP is a 12-week course that instructs students on criminal investigations, legal and constitutional instruction, tactics, firearms, driving techniques, as well as a host of other topics important to special agents in federal law enforcement. The second phase is specific to whatever agency the member is joining. ATF's follow-on course provides agent trainees more in-depth instruction in many areas, including firearms, explosives, and advanced tactical training. Now that we've talked about training, let's look at how much it pays. Civilian federal agents fall under the General Schedule, or GS pay scale, in the federal government. Agents make anywhere from $34,865, which is a GS-5, to about $96,000, which is a GS-13, depending on the experience and job performance. Another interesting pay benefit is the Law Enforcement Availability Pay, or LEAP. LEAP is an additional 25% of their salary for the compensation of varied work hours that law enforcement commits to. In addition to that, employees also receive locality pay, which covers additional cost of living expenses for higher priced areas. According to the ATF government website, there are several benefits and options through the U.S. government. Vacation time is earned at the rate of 13 to 26 days per year, with a maximum accumulation of 240 hours per year. Sick leave is earned at a rate of 13 days per year and may be accumulated without limit. Agents have paid holidays, low-cost health insurance, and they have the option to choose from a variety of plans. They have low-cost life insurance. Federal Employee Retirement System benefits. Special agents may retire at the age of 50 with 20 years of service, or at the age of 57 with 20 years of service. Additionally, employees may participate in the tax-deferred thrift savings plan. They also have health improvement or physical fitness programs. So now that you have a bit of knowledge and background about employment in federal law enforcement, let's talk about how their jobs apply to combating terrorism. To start that discussion, we need to introduce the Joint Terrorism Task Force, or JTTF, to the conversation. Prior to September 11th, the majority of investigations involving terrorism was accomplished by the FBI. If another federal agency was investigating a terrorism case, they would do so on their own with little to no collaboration. In the aftermath of 9/11, one of the lessons learned was that not enough information was being shared and there wasn't enough interagency cooperation. Savasta's article on the JTTF describes how the national JTTF is organized and led by the FBI. It is broken down so that many major cities have a JTTF. The JTTFs were a big step forward in collaboration between different federal agencies and at multiple levels of local law enforcement. Savasta relates further that all local law enforcement officers who are tasked with the JTTF are deputized as special U.S. Marshals and given top-secret clearances. Additionally, any overtime earned while in JTTF service is paid for by the FBI. This next graphic shows all the major partner organizations that fall under the National JTTF. As you can see, there are 49 agencies that are part of the National JTTF. I'd like to point out the breakdown of agencies. The majority are federal government agencies, which number at 30. What may be surprising to people is that the next largest group of entities falls under the Department of Defense. Lastly, we have 6 different organizations that are part of local law enforcement. These organizations are part of the JTTF primarily due to the large metropolitan areas they are responsible for. Now that you have an overview of the JTTF, let's discuss why I believe federal law enforcement can and should work harder with local law enforcement and communities to communicate, collaborate, and share information in order to prevent future terrorist attacks in the United States. In the article Evil Twins, The Crime-Terror Nexus, Perry, Lichtenwald, and McKenzie draw the correlation between organized crime and terrorists. This has been a problem not only in the United States, but all over the world. It highlights the continued need for law enforcement at different levels as well as intelligence analysts' necessity to communicate. It emphasized the requirements to collaborate in order to find the different ties and connections. In this article, the authors examine factors that make collaboration more likely in an effort to identify where there may be an overlap between these terrorist and criminal groups. More specifically, they illustrate how legitimate organizations may be directly involved in terrorist funding. It goes without saying that it is highly recommended for professionals involved in the detection of these two groups to work together.
When it comes to intel sharing, the point Chris would like to make here is that, generally, investigations in the previously listed crimes typically start with local law enforcement. If we have great communication between local law enforcement, federal agencies, and their intelligence analysts, we can get much closer to making the connection between terrorism, international crime, and local organized crime.
In order for federal agents to effectively combat terrorism, the cooperation and information needs to flow both ways. An integral part of this is local law enforcement's relationship with its community. In Mack's article, Countering Violent Extremism in the United States, Law Enforcement's Approach to Preventing Terrorism Through Community Partnerships, Mack addresses exactly that. Mack points out the importance of the relationship between law enforcement officers and the local community. Creating, improving, and maintaining these relationships has helped prevent acts of terrorism and allows for increased reporting of information. Mack emphasized the necessity for community outreach. It is further highlighted that the importance of making sure these relationships are enhanced is for the long term. When law enforcement reaches out to the community, it helps create trust and provides education on what should be reported. This should be done at both the local law enforcement and federal law enforcement levels. But in the end, there's only so many law enforcement officers and then only so much they can do. A great responsibility also lies with the local community reaching out to the police. According to Larson in the article, at first line of defense, vigilant surveillance, participatory policing, and the reporting of suspicious activity, this topic is tackled. Larson examines the campaign for everyday citizens to become more aware of their surroundings. By being more aware, citizens are taught to report suspicious incidents to law enforcement. Increased vigilance is a message that Western societies have worked to incorporate into everyday life. These types of programs further solidify the connection between the community and law enforcement everywhere. Larson helps lay out the connection between law enforcement at any level and everyday citizens. While this is not meant to create suspicion among friends or people in general, it is believed that there are usually signs of terrorism or suspicious activity that people either ignored or didn't want to report for any number of reasons. In conclusion, I want to re-emphasize that federal law enforcement needs to work harder with local law enforcement and communities to communicate, collaborate, and share information in order to prevent future terrorist attacks in the United States of America. I hope the points I've spoken about and presented here in this presentation have illustrated exactly that. I want to thank you for taking the time to watch this presentation, and I hope you enjoyed it.